The next recipient, John Mostacci. John was a teacher at Willowbrook from 1966, that's 2 years after I was born, till 2001. I know you don't deserve this, it's just, you're a wonderful man, you are. Subjects taught while at Willowbrook High School include American History, World Geography, Cinema Study, AP Psychology, Introduction to Psychology, Sociology, and History of the Non-Western World. Some of his accomplishments and awards received while serving at Willowbrook include, in 1979, an internship, Directors Guild of America, Hollywood, California. In 1978, study grant from the British Film Institute, University of Stirling, Scotland, and in 1977, American Film Institute, Summer Institute, University of Illinois, Chicago. He was the author of American Through Film, a history teacher's guide, associate editor and contributor to the Film News magazine, National Science Foundation grant to study the literature of Sigmund Freud at Occidental College in Los Angeles, and the NSF grant to study the teaching of AP Psychology at Beaver College, Glenside, Pennsylvania. Some of his personal, professional, and civic accomplishments also include Community Service Award from the Nedzra and DuPage Family Shelter, and a 1987 Outstanding Adjunct Faculty Award, Liberal Arts Division at the College of DuPage. Fellowships and scholarships from National Science Foundation, Illinois Arts Council, national endorsement. For the humanities, author of numerous articles in Scholastic Publishing and the History Journal. Jury member of the Chicago Film Festival and After Hours Film Society. This is a man of great dignity and unquenchable thirst for the arts. Ladies and gentlemen, John Mostacci.
Well, Ralph, this is a great night to be a teacher, and I'm really honored to receive this recognition. And I want to thank the District 88 Board for supporting the program. I want to thank Debbie Venezia and Mike Sullivan for nominating me for this award, and I want to thank Willowbrook Principal Dan Krause and the committee for selecting me. I also want to thank some of my friends who are here, Carl and Barbara Stasio, who came from Saco, Maine for this occasion. Carl is headmaster at a 200-year-old semi-private high school, Thornton Academy, and is an outstanding educator and someone who has had a tremendous influence on me personally. Carl is responsible for initiating a middle school program at Thornton Academy in 2006, and then in 2009 a remarkable program, a boarding program where students from 17 different countries come to Thornton Academy to be educated. And those countries include South Africa, China, Vietnam, Bulgaria, and Carl told me that there's even a kid from Arizona who's there. So I want to thank them for making this trip and for everything that he has provided for me. I want to thank Barbara especially for, and I think Carl had something to do with this, for giving me my goddaughter, Jenny. 27 years ago, Carl and Barbara asked me to be their godfather, and for Italian Catholics, that's a big deal. And I don't mean this in a Don Vito Corleone sense, but we take this very seriously, and it's quite an honor. Virginia Rydell and Joe Hoffenser. Virginia reminded me that I should thank her for it because I was such a pain in the ass. And Joe, I appreciate everything that both Virginia and Joe did for me as my department heads, both in English and social studies. What I used to do was when there were department meetings throughout the building, I would tell Joe that I was going to an English department meeting, and I would tell Virginia that I was going to a social studies meeting, and then I would just hide in the office and not go to any meetings, which is probably a good thing for everybody involved. Vince LaPaglia and Jill Saracino, I want to acknowledge also. Jill was my student teacher, a long-suffering, who also drove me to the airport often when I needed her, when I needed a ride, and who suffered my insults day to day. Vince is literally a force of nature. Vince is now retired just this year, taught psychology and AP psychology at Morton High School, where I graduated from, and did a remarkable job. I've been around Vince when his students and his colleagues were in his company, and they exhibited a tremendous affection for Vince and great respect for the job that he did and does. And then finally, Barb Mahoney, who is in her own right a remarkable middle school teacher and has creative energy and is so highly organized and is energetic in so many ways, everything I am not. And also their daughter, her daughter Kelly, and son-in-law John, who gave Barb two beautiful grandchildren who absolutely adore Barb and more or less tolerate me. Can I tell a Will story? We were walking, and we were walking Will and little Lukey. Will is 2 years old and soon to be 3, and Lukey is 1 year old. And we had Will and Lukey in a stroller, and we're walking in downtown Donnell, and Will looked back at Barb and said, but no, he was just talking. Will likes to kind of babble out loud and talk to himself. And he said the word stupid, and Barb said, Will, we don't say that word. And Will said, well, why? And he said, well, Barb said, it's not nice to say stupid. That's just not nice. And Will kind of contemplated this for a moment, and then he looked back and he said, can I say bullshit? I've been accused of being the source of that. And I want to say I'm not taking credit for bullshit. I use much stronger language than that. So when it gets to that point, then we can talk. I want to mention also my gratitude for being included in a group that includes Pat Kane and Barb Greenman and Bob Polzine and, of course, Ralph. This is quite an honor to be linked with them on this evening. You know, Ralph and I have known each other and been great friends for 45 years, but our relationship really goes back much further than that. We were both born at Mother Cabrini Hospital on the west side of Chicago, on Polk and Racine, and we both actually lived on Van Buren Street on the west side of Chicago. Ralph was on the east end of Garfield Park, and I was on the west end of Garfield Park. And while we did not actually know each other at the time, we later learned that we had friends in common. What we did not have in common is that while I was being educated in the Chicago public schools, Ralph was in the seminary studying to be a priest. And yeah, I know. And this. And this came up it actually came up in class one time. We were having a discussion with the class, and somehow Ralph mentioned that he was in the seminary and he was studying to be a priest. And one skeptical student raised his hand and said, Mr. Mostacci, was Mr. Emilio really in the seminary? I said, yeah, he was. And he said, well, was he really planning to be a priest? And I said, yeah, he was. He said, well, why did he leave? I said, well, he finally looked in the dictionary and saw the word, looked up the word chastity, and he said, is that what that means? What? And then he immediately dropped out. Now, Ralph tells the story. Now, he didn't tell the whole story, because as I recall, when that kid looked up that picture looked up the definition of impotence and found my picture, Ralph used a picture that he had taken of me several months before at a party, Ralphie, for you. It was your 6th or 7th birthday party. And I don't know if you remember, but you had a knit hat and a knit scarf with these ridiculous circular colors. Do you remember that? With a ball on top. And Ralph made me put that hat on and wear the hat and the scarf. And I looked, honestly, it was a terrible picture. It was a cross between a Dr. Seuss character and a pedophile. And that's the picture that he that he put in the dictionary. Now, let me tell you another story that kind of encapsulates our relationship and says something about the course that we taught and how it was run. I was teaching my AP psychology class early in the year, and I was talking about various techniques of persuasion, and I don't know if Athena was in that particular class, but I was discussing these techniques of persuasion and so forth, and I made some kind of a reference to the kinds of tactics that the sororities and fraternities use to kind of bond the group. And one of the students asked, love bombing and isolation, so on and so on. And one of the kids raised his hand and said, "Mr. Mostacci, were you in a fraternity?" And I said, "No, if I joined a fraternity, my Cicero buddies would have beat the hell out of me." And he said, "No, I didn't join a fraternity." I said, "Besides, they had these outrageous rituals that I didn't want to have any part of. For example, this one fraternity on campus, and I tried to put this delicately, during Hell Week, they would take the rushes and line them up and measure a certain part of their anatomy. And it wasn't their arm. And the poor guy who came out on the short end had to carry a bucket of sand around the campus during that Hell Week. And then the guy who came out on the long end had to wear a big fireman's hat. And everybody knew that. And it was humiliating. I didn't want any part of that. Flash forward to May when the kids had taken the AP exam and they wanted to have a party. And I said, well, fine. And they gave me some small gifts. And one of them, the last gift was in a big box. It was on my desk. And I opened it, and it was a bucket of sand. Well, you're laughing. They're all laughing, but they're continuing to laugh. And I laughed, and I knew what it meant. And they're continuing to laugh. And they're all looking toward the door. And I look over at the door, and there's Ralph standing there like this with a big fireman's hat. So, I had a terrific time teaching at Willowbrook High School. Not only the film class, but the other courses that were mentioned, including U.S. history and psychology and AP psychology and so forth. I had the benefit of having remarkable students. Ralph mentioned 10,000. I was involved in a number of different team taught courses, and I had just a terrific, bright, energetic, encouraging students, funny kids who made me laugh and so on and so forth. A lot of them are in this room. Athena Actipus, for example, one of the brightest students I've ever had. I confessed to Athena that on tests, I gave you many tests, as you know, and I would use Athena's test paper as a check against my answer key. And Laurie Stedman is here, and I look at and Jennifer Purcell and Tom Dome. Well, Tom wasn't that great, but it was really quite an experience for me, and I'm so proud to have been here, and so glad to enjoy this evening with all of you. I have purposely avoided any long discussion of the serious problems that our schools face in the 21st century. The truth is, I don't have any solutions to offer for those problems. But what I do know is that films like Waiting for Superman and books like Crisis on Campus, both of which are over-the-top criticisms of America's schools and both high school, public schools and colleges, those works totally ignore the great works that so many of our teachers and educational leaders perform on a daily basis. And again, many of those teachers are in this room tonight. As long as we have people like you, these problems will be addressed and they will be overcome. So I thank you, and I appreciate everything that you do, and I appreciate this award very much.